Hello everyone and welcome to the next review for Macbeth. It's rather difficult to discuss such an iconic work, such a ubiquitous author, someone who has been studied so much in such depth, of course. I could discuss, for example, Joseph Meeker and Don Elgin's comic ecological perspective and how that differs from the tragic perspective and so forth, which it does have a lot, there's a lot there in terms of analysis for Macbeth, but I'm probably just going to avoid that and really discuss what I gained from Macbeth, what I enjoyed about it, how I felt when reading it and so forth. So it's rather strange because I don't really recall ever reading Shakespeare in high school or secondary school. I must have done, but I don't really have a clear memory of it. It's quite strange. As with many old works, there's a sense of trepidation, apprehension when starting them. And yet, when you get into a particular work, I've noticed that as time goes on, as you read more and more, things aren't as intimidating as they were. I'd like to say, I think that is the case. I remember, just as an example, sitting down to read the Iliad felt like such a momentous task, and yet now it just seems it's very familiar and seems almost friendly in that I spent so much time involved with these characters, and I got to understand Greek history and mythology and so forth. I remember as I read the Iliad, this is several years ago now, as I read the Iliad, I was also reading ancient Greek history as well to try and understand the context behind this work. And nowadays it just seems very familiar and easy to read in that sense. I remember similar feelings for Crime and Punishment, Silmarillion, all these major works, these dense works. But again, nothing is ever so difficult as your mind makes it out to be. So I sat down and read Macbeth, and I almost laughed because as I've mentioned on this channel many times before, I love archaic language. I love that sense of weighty reverence that Shakespearean language can endow. And I read this and I thought, I was reading Macbeth and I thought, this is actually much simpler than The Worm Ouroboros, for example, E.R. Edison's work, which is somewhere up, it's that one right there, the red book on the shelf, which is written, most of the book is written in Elizabethan English. I would say that was a much more difficult read than Shakespeare's Macbeth. And yes, I think it's just a case of trying to have courage, I think. So of course this is Shakespeare's shortest play, written around 1606 for King James. Around this time, of course, there was anxieties about kingship and divine rule, and it's kind of a mishmash of different sources. The Holinshed Chronicles was Shakespeare's primary source. He, as I believe, found accounts of Macbeth and Duncan and Macduff within that chronicle. And of course, as Shakespeare was writing, there was the attempted assassination of King James, gunpowder treason, around 1605. And speaking of context, one of the things I just love about history in general is that learning history has so many applications. It allows you to appreciate heritage sites, and it gives you an understanding of the way that life used to be. In terms of fiction, in terms of created works, it allows you to appreciate them more. Just as an example, understanding the background behind the forming of the Kingdom of Alba in the 1800s to the 1000s, the MacAlpin dynasty and so forth, the various different kings and lineages of early Scotland, which is very useful to know for reading Macbeth, and it's a sense of reward. But yes, on to the text itself. One of the first scenes is, of course, the meeting of Macbeth and Banquo with the three witches, the weird sisters. One of the things I love about that particular scene on the heath, on the moorland, is the sense of the world not being fully apprehended, not being fully known. This sense of reverence again, the strangeness of the weird sisters. It just takes us back to a time again when the world wasn't tamed. "Stay, you imperfect speakers," says Macbeth, Thane of Glamis, who will soon become Thane of Cawdor, of course. The sense of our destinies not being fully apprehended. There are so many strange workings in life. And so Macbeth is told by the weird sisters on the moor around Inverness that he will not only become Thane of Cawdor, but King of Scotland, king hereafter. And Banquo will get many kings, though he himself will not be a king. And he is driven, of course, by Lady Macbeth to kill Duncan, to further cement his power. And this is where Macbeth becomes gradually more and more desirous of power. He becomes mad. He is the mad king, archetypal mad king. And indeed, having read Macbeth, it really does correspond to a lot of the characters and events in my fantasy world, Sartoris, which I've mentioned before on this channel quite a few times. Shalanon, for example, King of Ananur. And indeed, now that I think about it, I've neglected to mention that the tribes of Scotland really they do correspond quite well to some of the Fuartalan tribes in Sartoris, which is another thing that I quite enjoyed about reading Macbeth, how obviously it being set in Scotland, and the Highlands in particular, does have a lot of correspondence to my own writings. And so Duncan must die, and Macbeth is driven to this murder. "Is this a dagger which I see before me, the handle toward my hand? Come, let me clutch thee. I have thee not, and yet I see thee still. Art thou not, fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight, or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation, proceeding from the heat-oppressed brain? I see thee yet, in form as palpable as this which now I draw." The monologues, the soliloquies in Macbeth are just, of course, they cannot be beaten. And I always find, whatever work it is, I always get goosebumps when reading such language. How much poetic movement there is, how much, again, that sense of every deed mattering, of every word having that sense of weighty reverence behind it again. I struggle to put that into words. I believe some eco-critic said that, I think it was Anthony Loy, I think, who said that profundity is boring. I understand what he means by that, but I just love such text, such language. And so, of course, after King Duncan is killed, Macbeth ascends the throne, and Malcolm and Donalbain, his brother, flee. One flees to England, Malcolm flees to England, and Donalbain flies to Ireland. And this is really where Macbeth kind of opens out. As the nobles become more suspicious of Macbeth, allegiances are forged, and there's a kind of a lateral movement in Macbeth, where again the nobles all move to the different positions, but again obviously the main focus is drilling down deeper and deeper into the psyche of Macbeth and Lady Macbeth as they grow gradually more and more troubled with their deeds. But of course, Macbeth cannot let things lie. He's too insecure. He must gain absolute power. very monomaniacal. "You must leave this," says Lady Macbeth. "O full of scorpions is my mind, dear wife. Thou knowest that Banquo and his fiancée lives." And so Banquo, once the friend and co-general, I suppose, of Macbeth, meets his end by hired murderers. Reading Macbeth drew so many associations with works like The Castle of Otranto, the works of Edgar Allan Poe, the War of Ouroboros, in terms of its warring vying clans and noblemen. It's Gothic heroic, and all the nobles sitting around the dining tables in the great hall, and Macbeth is seeing the ghost of Banquo. Lady Macbeth says, "Are you a man?" Macbeth replies, "Aye, and a bold one, that dare look on that which might appall the devil." "Oh, proper stuff," replies Lady Macbeth. "This is the very painting of your fear. This is the air-drawn dagger which you said led you to Duncan." Macbeth is slowly losing his mind. It's so well portrayed, not only in the interactions between Lady Macbeth and Macbeth himself, but again in the monologues, in the great soliloquies. So much inspiration I took from Macbeth, just generally. I love the scene on the moorland again when Macbeth deliberates to see the weird sisters again, to find out more. And he is confronted by these various apparitions. I love particularly just this one line here: "Thunder, an apparition of a child crowned with a tree in his hand rises." This reminded me of a particular scene again in Sartorus of one of the primary figures in the lore, holding a black stone in one hand and a tree or sapling in the other. And so these apparitions tell Macbeth that he is essentially invulnerable. "Be bloody, bold, and resolute, laugh to scorn the power of man, for none of women born shall harm Macbeth." And later on, "Be lion-mettled, proud, and take no care who chafes, who frets, or where conspirers are. Macbeth shall never vanquished be, until great Birnam wood to high Dundonane hill shall come against him." Macbeth replies, "That will never be. Who can impress the forest? Bid the tree unfix his earth-bound root. Sweet bodements good. Rebellious head, rise never till the wood of Birnam rise, and our high-placed Macbeth shall live the lease of nature, pay his breath to time and mortal custom. Yet my heart throbs to know one thing. Tell me, if your art can tell so much, shall Banquo's issue ever reign in this kingdom?" And all the apparitions at once say, "Seek to know no more." Macbeth cannot let things lie. He's always seeking the next step in his advancement. And so the nobleman Macduff begins to gradually become more suspicious of Macbeth, and he flies to England to join Malcolm in the court of the King of England. And Malcolm and Macduff are trying to impress upon the king the need to send warriors to fight against Macbeth, and mainly to gain an ally in the figure of Seward, the Earl of Northumberland. And as Macduff and Malcolm and Seward gather against Macbeth, and Macbeth removes to Dundonane, the great fortress, Macbeth and Lady Macbeth become gradually more, and they feel a great turmoil bubbling within them. And of course we get the very famous monologue by Lady Macbeth: "Out, damn spot, I say, the blood will not wash away." Lady Macbeth becomes more and more ill. She gradually fades away. She begins to sleepwalk, and eventually she dies. And this is, of course, where we get the very famous, very well-known monologue from Macbeth, which I may as well try to read here. "Wherefore was that cry? The Queen, my lord, is dead. She should have died hereafter. There would have been a time for such a word. Tomorrow, tomorrow, and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day, to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Macduff fights Macbeth at the very end of this play, having hidden their true number by cutting down the boughs of Birnam Wood. And I believe this is one of the inspirations for the moving trees, the Huorns, in Lord of the Rings. An interesting tactic, perhaps not one that is very loving to the earth. The exchange between Macbeth and Macduff is very powerful. Why should I play the Roman fool and die on mine own sword? Those I see lives, the gashes do better upon them. Macduff says, turn, hellhound, turn. Macbeth, of all men else I have avoided thee, but get thee back. My soul is too much charged with blood of thine already. Macduff, I have no words. My voice is in my sword. Thou losest labour. As easy mayst thou the entrancient air with thy keen sword impress, as make me bleed. Let fall thy blade on vulnerable crests. I bear a charmed life, which must not yield to one of women born. Macduff in reply, despair thy charm, and let the angel whom thou still hast served tell thee, Macduff was from his mother's womb untimely ripped. So the weird sisters speaking in enigmatic ways and hidden truths, and the twisting of words have really prophesied that Macbeth must die, ultimately. I'm glad I finally read it. It's a great inspiration. I think I'll just end on a very quick acknowledgement of various adaptations, I suppose. I've been watching the very famous Ian McKellen adaptation. I have to say I particularly love the 2015 film adaptation with Michael Fassbender and Marion Cotillard. It's actually very well. It's really quite accurate, despite the missing characters and some changes in scenery and so forth. But it's a very powerful film, and I would actually say it's more brutal than Macbeth is, the original text, especially one scene with the conflagration. It's very, very powerful, very moving. I think they handle the soliloquies quite well. Marion's delivery of the out-damned spot soliloquy is very, very powerful, very moving. But yes, I think I will end on the fact that I'm definitely going to be getting into more Shakespeare. It's a strange gap in my reading experience, I suppose. So yes, hope you enjoyed this review. Till next time, everyone. Thanks for watching.